to episode 338 of Late Night Linux, recorded on the 16th of June 2025. I'm Joe, and with me are Phelim.
8 or possibly 9 more sleeps.
Graham.
It's nights are nearly drawing in.
And Will.
Hello.
Graham, it's not even the summer solstice yet, so I'm not having that.
It's a week.
Yeah, you see, all the good stuff happens next week. Solstice hits, now it's starting to roll into dark days, which is good. And Iron Maiden. I mean, come on.
Anyway, let's get on with the news. Last week, we talked about how GNOME is dropping support for X11 and how that might affect the next Ubuntu LTS. Well, we've now got confirmation. Ubuntu 25.10 is going to drop support for GNOME on Xorg. So now we know that Fedora 43 and Ubuntu 25.10 won't support X11 in GNOME. And I don't know if it's related, but there is now a fork of Xorg called Xlibra. And that's by someone who had contributed a fair bit to Xorg. Well, it turns out the person who did that fork is one of the baddies, because in the README it says it's explicitly free of any DEI or similar discriminatory policies. And at the bottom of it, it says, together we'll make X great again.
Ah, dear.
Oh dear, indeed.
If there's one complaint I've had about Xorg over the years, it is the excess of DEI policies holding them back.
Yeah, exactly.
We've a link to another from the register where one of the guys who's talking about the same stuff there links to a gist on a GitHub page by one of the guys. And it's like one of the first things he says is just so... I don't know. It didn't sit well with me. It said, oh, you know, there's nothing wrong with X. It just works. It's like, no, it doesn't. Not if you want like things like security and, you know, I don't know. It's just like, well, security is the big main one, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, I want every window on my machine to be able to see what the contents of every other window are, with like things like Telegram being potentially dodgy or the like, and just let it be dead as soon as possible. That's all I say.
I mean, this is the proper beginning of the end for Xorg, isn't it? Because if you look at the main distros, they're dropping it. And yeah, okay, the likes of XFCE are still going to be using it, but how many people use that? And now it's been forked, and so that's basically splitting the community. It's just as good as dead as far as I'm concerned, and good. It's about time. I mean, I'm going to be stranded on it, basically, until there is enough developer effort to properly finish the port to Wayland for XFCE.
But that would be WFCE.
Well, exactly, yes. But I don't know if that is necessarily going to happen, because I'm not convinced that there are the resources there to do it. And so that does sort of beg the question of, what does the future hold? Are we just going to have the big desktops because they can support Wayland? Because XFCE will continue to work. You'll be able to load it up and load the default applications and all the rest of it. But if you think about it sort of 5-10 years down the line, applications are going to not really support X anymore, are they? They're going to be kind of Wayland first and just slowly stop working. Not necessarily completely, but just certain UI elements will get buggy and all the rest of it. So we might end up in a kind of shit situation where there's only really GNOME and Plasma and, you know, maybe some others like Budgie. I mean, that's the pessimistic view. The optimistic view is that this will be the kick up the arse that the likes of XFCE need to fully get there with Wayland.
I think what's more likely is that XFCE will continue along the same lines as it has done, and gradually there will be fewer and fewer maintainers, and it will wither and eventually die. But I don't think it'll die in the next 10 years. I think it will just be at a steady state, and that's fine for the people who are using it and don't want to change. But what we will see is more and more alternatives to XFCE, lightweight, new Wayland-based desktops that do things in a similar way to XFCE, or, you know, even bringing fresh ideas, but the idea of a very lightweight, very slim desktop window manager and general on-screen presence will come along and thrive, because they won't have that baggage of the last 30 years of people not wanting their cheese moved. So I think it's okay. I think that the two things can exist at the same time. XFCE can sit in its corner and mind its own business, and people can continue to use it, and there will be an opportunity for new, fresh ideas to come in a similar space that currently they can't really get in at because the established old man desktops are taking up that space.
I don't want you to be right about XFCE, but I hope you're right about the new desktops that will come and replace it. On this fork, though, I saw ridiculous conspiracy theories about how this fork happened and then the big tech companies decided to drop X11. Like, what kind of bullshit is that? Like, have you not realized over the past year or more the steady march to drop X11? Like, this is not a new thing. It's not a new idea that's suddenly come along.
In fairness, has it not even been longer than that? Realistically, people have wanted Wayland to arrive for the last decade, maybe?
I was actually just trying to find when this came up in the old Tux Radar podcast, and I think it was in the second season, so something like 2010. So this conversation has been a long one. It really is time, and hopefully, this is the tipping point in that logarithmic graph of moving to Wayland.
Well, the thing is, Wayland has been default on the likes of Fedora for a very long time now. But there's a difference between it being default and it being the only option. And that's now what we're moving towards.
I mean, I still have problems with Wayland and proprietary NVIDIA hardware and KWin, but I accept that I need to efface this pain. People need to start fixing those bugs, and they can only do that by using it and being the only option.
Yeah.
I think I've been incredibly lucky with mine. I haven't had any problems whatsoever, but maybe I just haven't discovered them yet.
Well, the great irony for me is that all of my machines pretty much are just Intel integrated graphics, and I don't do any remote desktop stuff. I don't need any accessibility. So I'm a prime candidate. And where I've used Ubuntu with Wayland, it's been absolutely fine. But I just prefer XFCE.
Yeah, if only you weren't self-hobbling yourself.
Indeed.
I think we've talked about this previously. I would suggest giving GNOME a go on Ubuntu. It's fine.
Damning with faint praise, if ever I heard it.
There's only so much it can do, right? There's only so many tasks it can perform, and it does those perfectly well. I don't think that the limiting factor is the desktop anymore. It's things like Chrome eating all your memory, and Slack and VS Code and things like that, which, are just great big fat bastards. And that's the real problem. And there's no desktop environment in the world that can do anything about that.
Well, I've got it on my framework laptop, and I installed, is it not Dash to Dock? What's the one you use, Will?
Dash to Panel.
And it's fine, but just everything works that little bit differently. And some things are better and some things are worse.
That's why you should go to KDE, and things will work differently, and you won't need to worry about how similar they are.
Well, I'm sure that if I spent enough time with the Plasma desktop, I could make it act basically exactly like my XFCE desktop.
I think there would be almost minimal effort required, to be quite honest, because it wouldn't be constantly stopping you trying to make you do it the way it thinks you should.
Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should install Plasma and just configure it. Just spend a few hours configuring it exactly how I want and just looking up all the little things that annoy me and how to fix them.
There's even a slider to turn off animations just for you.
I don't think Joe will go for it. I think what we need to do is come up with an XFC configuration for KDE.
Yeah, just write a bash script for me.
Yeah. We should have an XFCE configuration that looks and operates just like XFCE.
Delete all the wallpaper directories.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in. Let's do this.
Okay. I do wish KDE had kind of settings profiles. I think we've mentioned this before.
Yeah.
Where you could just, download them and switch between them and even,
publish
configurations from people who use it.
I think I am going to do this, because I did give Plasma a go ages ago on my TV machine, TV in quotes machine, and found it a little bit buggy. But I think I'm going to dig one of the laptops out of the stack and install, I don't know, should I go for just Kubuntu and just be boring? Or should I go for Neon?
I think you should go for Arch.
Yeah.
I do like Kubuntu, and it's obviously a good project in the fact that if you're looking for an LTS, which might suit you more, but I do enjoy getting the latest KDE on top of the LTS, which Neon really is, though I don't know what's going to happen to it in future. I'm not sure what John Thurgell's plans are. So, interesting.
Yeah, I feel like with Kubuntu, it's not really going to change much, is it? And I like that. I like that a lot. I like to set it up exactly how I want it and then just have it never change. And I don't need all these fancy new features that you talk about in KDE Corner every couple of weeks.
What, like useful things?
Yeah.
Oh, I agree. And what Phelim and I can do is, every couple of weeks just tell you about a couple of features that have been there from the beginning, but they'll be new for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They'll just be, 5 menus deep and I'll eventually find them.
Here we go. Here we go. No, you can't use it. You're not allowed.
Okay, this episode is sponsored by Tailscale. Go to tailscale.com/LNL. Tailscale is a proper VPN for connecting your devices and infrastructure together, not something that's marketed at people watching foreign streaming services or who want to hide their browsing habits from coffee shop staff. It's the easiest way to connect devices and services to each other wherever they are. PCs and laptops, servers, cloud instances, 3D printers, network storage. Connect anything and everything you want wherever it is and get started in minutes. Tailscale's personal plan will always be free, and you get up to 100 devices and 3 users for free with no credit card required. The free personal plan is enough for me to send my offsite backups to my parents' house and to get into my LAN while I'm out and about. But what gave me the confidence to start relying on Tailscale was their straightforward business model. If you want to use Tailscale at an industrial scale, with more users and devices, or take advantage of features like MDM policies, auditing, network flow logging, and priority support, you can join over 10,000 companies as a paying customer. So support the show and go to tailscale.com/LNL and try Tailscale out at home or at work today. That's tailscale.com/LNL. Linux Foundation tries to play peacemaker in ongoing WordPress scuffle. So the Linux Foundation have announced this thing called the Fair Package Manager. And the idea is that instead of relying on a centralized single entity for your WordPress updates and your plugin updates and everything, if you install this plugin from the Linux Foundation, these updates can be somewhat decentralized. And really, this is because, as a quick recap, WordPress and Automatic, the company that Matt Mullenweg runs, had a bit of a fight, shall we say, with WP Engine. And at least for a while, it's a while since I've followed this, but at least for a while, blocked updates to WP Engine customers, which is just a shit situation for those people who are hosting it there. So the idea is that if people use this Fair Package Manager, then that's not really going to be possible for WordPress and Automatic to do that kind of thing in the future. Now, to get this going, it seems you just manually install their plugin, which was just a case of syncing up the directory and activating the plugin in WordPress. And I was kind of expecting a bit more, like in terms of controls and telling me what's going on, but I'm assuming that with it installed, it will just pull the updates from Aspire Cloud, which is what it's currently pointed at. But it feels very minimal at this stage and not brilliantly documented. So I promptly uninstalled it. But it's good to know that it's there just in case.
Is it? When does the Linux Foundation usually get involved in things like this? And why are they doing it? Taken at face value, yes, it's not a bad idea. But I can't take it at face value. I feel like this is the Linux Foundation trying to lever its way into some very lucrative WordPress control of its own. Is that wrong of me?
That's very cynical.
I think weasel was the verb you were looking for.
I think I see it more honorably, really, in that it's just a fucking embarrassment what has happened with WordPress, which is, like it or not, one of the flagship open source software projects out there. I mean, I would imagine that it's slightly lower than it used to be, the percentage of websites running WordPress, but it's still a fuckload.
But when has the Linux Foundation ever worried itself about the impression it gives to open source and free software?
Shots fired.
Well, when? I mean, look at who it accepts as its corporate membership.
Oh, all right, let's assume that you're right about this. What is in it for them?
I don't know. I'm just feeling a little bit cynical and skeptical about it. A naive interpretation might be that it does give them some control over perhaps, one of the most widely used open source projects, and it just wants its way in, as a way of capturing that.
Are you saying monopoly rules? Buy everything you land on, and then you'll win.
Well, a little bit, yeah. I think they've seen an opportunity, and they can leverage their position, and then they'll maybe see where it goes.
I mean, they are desperately in need of a reason to exist, somewhat, I find.
Well,
do we not think?
Well, they can share this with their platinum membership of Meta and Microsoft and Qualcomm, and, I don't know.
I think it's outrageous to say that they need a reason to exist. Employing Torvalds and Greg is enough.
Wow, 2 guys, cool. That's brilliant. It definitely needs all that overhead. I mean, I'm sure they get paid well, but really?
I mean, that took some time to happen as well.
Could it not be one of those P.O. box companies where it's like Greg and Linus at Linux, and it just goes to a P.O. box in some tiny town somewhere, and they just get paid out of that? That's really all that needs.
Well, you're forgetting about all the cool cloud native stuff they do as well.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it again.
It would fall on deaf ears, Phelim, so there's no point.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't listening there. Did you just tell me about it just there, was it? Oh, well, I've missed it again.
I want to think the best of them in this case.
Why? What have they ever done, really? And this is not like the Romans, because there's no fucking roads and, no aqueducts either. It's just a pointless organization. If it was a group that actually did things that you assumed a foundation like that would do, then yes, absolutely. But it's not what we all think it is.
I don't think it's a pointless organisation. I think, as I've said before, I think it's a pity it has the name the Linux Foundation. I think it's perfectly fine to be doing what it's doing, but it gets a lot of mindshare by being called the Linux Foundation, where we expect it to do kind of altruistic things, which I don't feel it does enough.
Big business chums looking out for each other. .Linux didn't really, I guess, sort of win.
It's a trade body, isn't it?
That's not what everybody thinks a foundation is. There is an altruistic side to a foundation people inherently assume, and they're just happy for you to believe that.
Is this not altruistic, though? They are solving a problem. They are mopping up the mess that WordPress have made.
I don't feel this is altruistic. We're not included in the Fair Package Manager project. I suppose we could, but it's just happened like that. There's not been any negotiation. There's not been any kind of collaboration.
How do you know? Just because you've not been involved?
It's true.
I haven't either. So, I mean, I think that's pretty much all the bases covered there. I mean,
well, they are open to contributions to the project, as I found out when I woke up.
Presumably it's open source, so yes.
They accepted my pull request to fix its to its. Hey. Very important in the README.
Good work.
Your pedantry pull request.
I see. You've got a vested interest in this.
Yeah, exactly. They could have told me to piss off, though, couldn't they?
Should. That's, I think, the term you were looking for. Are you expecting a T-shirt to arrive at any point, Joe?
Look, I am a WordPress user, right? Our websites run on WordPress because I'm too lazy to learn how to do it properly with something like Hugo.
And for fuck's sake, Amleth, hurry up and do it, will you, for God's sake?
Well, yeah. Yes, indeed. Amleth needs to finish the fucking website that he's been working on in quotes for the last 18 months. But anyway, I am a WordPress user and I am concerned about the direction that it's gone in. And this gives me some comfort to know that if it gets to a point where they say, self-hosted WordPress people, you've got to pay for updates. Well, now I've got an option in this Fair Package Manager, hopefully, to get those updates for free.
You're still looking for sponsorship and advertising opportunities on Late Night Linux.
Yeah. This episode is sponsored by the Linux Foundation. As if they'd give us any money.
Nice try, Joe.
We're very corporate friendly, I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, no, they're brilliant. We were just joking.
Android 16 is out, and it's really not very interesting. I updated my Pixel and could hardly tell the difference. But something has changed. Google is changing the way they develop Android to be completely throw it over the wall. Now, I thought they were more or less doing that anyway, but now they are just not developing it in the open whatsoever. And once it's done, they just dump it to AOSP, and then that's that. Previously, they would publish the device tree for Pixel devices, which would mean that custom ROMs were relatively easy to make for Pixels. And that's why you've got like Calyx and loads of other custom ROMs, obviously Lineage, that Phelim uses. But that has now changed. They say the reference device should be this virtual device called Cuttlefish instead of the Pixel devices, which seems like a bullshit excuse to me. So this has sparked all sorts of rumors like, oh, are they going to kill AOSP? Well, no. Someone from Google has said, no, it's not going away. The Android open source project is going to continue. But this is bad news for custom ROM developers. It's going to be a lot harder now for them to make the ROMs for the Pixel devices. And that is shit, quite frankly.
I've never been lucky enough to afford one, but I really, really wish we had even a 5-year-old version of a board that was fully open all the way. Like, I just don't accept that there can be that many amazing things 5 years ago in mobile technology that we couldn't just get a free, proper open board and just have a phone built from that, even if it's like not as quick as the latest one, because my phone is 2017 era and it's still totally fine because I'm not running all the shite on top of it.
But Google only supports these Pixels for a limited amount of time. And it was always good to know that I could put Lineage on my old phone and get security updates. I don't think that these custom ROMs are going to die, but development's going to slow down, surely. And related to this, Google will reduce Pixel 6a battery capacity due to overheating issues. Very similar to the 4a, which they basically bricked with a software update, like a forced software update that you really could not avoid. And that was due to a slightly dodgy battery. And how have they fucked this up twice? That's what I want to know.
Very convenient, isn't it? You might have to buy a new phone now. Oh, no.
Yeah, which is exactly what happened with my niece. She had a 4A and that basically got bricked. And so we had to buy a 7A to replace it. Secondhand, obviously.
Maybe we'll see more and more of this as, we're keeping our phones for longer and longer. I certainly have no reason to upgrade my 4-year-old phone.
Yeah, does it fold though, Graham?
Well,
does yours still fold more accurately? Does it sound like there's a handful of gravel in between the joint?
I do kind of want a folding one, I must admit. I wouldn't be I would be sad if I dropped this because I haven't backed it up for a while.
Yeah, I thought you were going to keep an eye out on eBay or whatever, Graham.
Yeah, I haven't been looking, but that's because I spent all my money on synthesizers.
Right, well. Okay, this episode is sponsored by Entroware. Go to entroware.com. Entroware sells laptops, desktops, and servers with Ubuntu pre-installed. Most parts are configurable, so you can pick the CPU, RAM, and storage that's right for you. If you can't find exactly what you're looking for, then do contact them and they'll work with you on a bespoke solution that's perfect for your needs. They ship to the UK, Republic of Ireland, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. And if you do buy one of their machines, there's a little drop down at checkout where you can select Late Night Linux so they'll know that we sent you. So go to entroware.com for all your Linux computing needs. On to a bit of admin then. First of all, thank you everyone who supports us with PayPal and Patreon. We really do appreciate that. If you want to join those people, you can go to latenightlinux.com/support. And remember that for various amounts on Patreon, you can get an advert-free RSS feed of either just this show or all the shows in the Late Night Linux family. And you even get some episodes early. And if you want to get in contact, you can email show@latenightlinux.com. The big news out of Apple's WWDC was obviously they have decided to embrace Windows Vista. But apart from that, around that time, I don't know if it even got announced, was this thing Container. So this is, as the name suggests, a command line utility to create and manage and run and pull containers. Proper OCI containers, that is.
It's too long a command name, and I can't spell it properly half the time, I'd say.
Yeah, you'll probably spell it with a K.
Obviously.
On the one hand, this is somewhat unusual to me that Apple have got this Linux container tool on GitHub, open source. It just seems really weird to me and really cool and a sign that like we're winning. But on the other hand, there are plenty of tools for this already on the Mac, and are developers and cloud admins and stuff really going to change tool? Seems unlikely to me, but maybe because it's an official one.
Maybe not the hardcore ones, but I could see a lot of people who were previously, pro-Apple people who, God, no, I wouldn't touch something unofficial. Apple's got a reason for not having Linux containers or making virtualization difficult. This, okay, so it'll be the best thing they've ever used.
Maybe. I mean, I tried it out briefly and I didn't spend enough time on it really to get a sense of it, but it sort of seemed to work fine to me. So it's quite bare bones though. It's designed for the next version of macOS, which is going to be 26. So it doesn't fully work in the current version. So we'll have to see how it develops. But it's interesting to me nonetheless that Linux is basically on all the platforms now.
I think that is interesting. I think it's a quiet revolution, but it's happened.
We've sort of won, but not how we thought we would win.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I'm not sure how happy I am about it.
Feels like a bit of a hollow victory.
Yeah. Feels like they've changed the rules, damn it. They've used open source to do their own thing. Fuckers.
Might even call it a Pyrrhic victory.
Although I have to say, I got into conversation with somebody just recently. I was explaining why you pronounce GNOME as GNOME. And this person happened to be younger, but I felt so ridiculous. The whole thing, GNU, recursive acronyms, the GNOME thing.
Now, was this just a random person on a train or a bus? Or was it at least in a tech environment?
It wasn't a tech environment, and it's just so irrelevant. And maybe this is the world now. They just run container, and what are we going on about?
Yeah, we're just dinosaurs, aren't we? I remember a friend of mine became romantically involved briefly, shall we say, with someone who was a host on one of our shows once upon a time. I'm trying to keep this vague, but it's very hard. Anyway, and then my friend listened to the show and said, he can't even pronounce GNOME properly. And then I had to explain, no, it is GNOME. And it was like, I don't know, the look that I got was, to quote Bill Hicks, the look you get from a dog that's been shown a card trick. Phelim, we've got the smallest of KDE corners ever.
6.4 is out tomorrow or today, depending on when you listen to, on the 17th of June 2025. Enjoy. And I have linked to a page that does not exist again in the hoping that this will actually turn into a proper page tomorrow.
Yeah, it's just a directory listing at the moment with some images. So you're expecting the HTML to show up tomorrow then?
It worked last time, but I'm prepared to make that bet again.
Right, well, we better get out of here then. We'll be back next week when who knows what it'll be. But until then, I've been Joe.
I've been Phelim.
I've been Graham.
And I've been Will.
See you later.